my biggest breakthrough was when my mentor said to me, so your dad kicked you out of the house. He disowned you. He basically said, if you die, I don't care. He said it literally. Oh, that's unforgivable. Oh my God, what a horrible man. Like, I could have made that narrative the rest of my life, which I did, by the way. And then the mentor said to me, why did he do it? And then I could cry again because I said, because he loved me. And he just didn't know how to deal with the fear of me always going away.
Thank you. So where were we? We can resume our
How did we get here? Where is my beautiful house? Where is my beautiful wife? When the days go by, water flowing under. You don't know that?
We're
Talking
different
Heads?
generations to me.
Oh my God.
Not when the water.
I'll sing that song every day. Where is my beautiful house? Where is my beautiful wife? How did I get here? Okay.
Keep going.
I'm trying to think of that. When the days go by, water flowing under. And I can't remember the rest.
Yeah. Wow. I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
No reference point to that.
My apologies for the ageism.
That was on me, I think. Good to do this, brother.
Yes, it
is. Great.
Yes, it's funny. Many people joining wouldn't realize that we actually had a pre to this, which was what I would like to call sauna talks.
Yeah.
Like, nothing's more intimate than being in the sauna talking.
There's something about that, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure this will be very similar. It's not that hot in here, though, but it will be.
Yeah, well, for both of us. Maybe for me, I will see.
I've done so many conversations. I've been cold, hot. I've had it all. But it's good. How you feeling?
Good. It was a long few days.
Yeah, so some context. We were just at Be the Earth Festival.
Yes. I made an underestimation of what it would mean to give out my book before a festival.
Yeah, what was the intentions behind that? Because you had it in this circle and everyone set an intention. We opened and grabbed your book.
Yeah.
So it was a key part.
It was beautiful. So they asked me to open the session. And the session's about indigenous wisdom and about female empowerment. And I said, guys.
White privilege.
Well, I was like, so you want me to open the event? like I'm going to spend an hour talking about how uncomfortable it is for me to open the event. So I'll do it, but like realize. And then I said, well.
That's funny. I'd have loved to send that.
And then I said, so let's do something else. Let's I'll sponsor some books. And then we'll leave that as a commitment to the days ahead, because in a weird way, I'm so vulnerable in the book that if anyone gets into it, they'll immediately start reflecting on their own vulnerability, and then that'll bleed into the 4 days, which it did. So that was the intention. The intention was to say, lead with vulnerability.
Yeah,
and that's always been part of my life, is to show the parts of myself that are less comfortable as an example to others who might not be as comfortable doing that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But I loved having the book, and everyone could flick through it, read it, but then you were there the whole time.
Yeah.
When has that been an opportunity to actually have a book and then be in the space with the author? And yeah, I just thought that was a really beautiful thing.
And I underestimated what that would mean. As weird as that might sound, because I became the magnet for anyone who would think, wow, I know how vulnerable I can be with him now. So forget about not having chit chat. It went to like deepest, darkest mommy daddy, because they knew intuitively they'd be able to meet me there and not have any concerns that I might reject it or have a problem with it.
Were they right?
Yeah. Course. I mean, I cried a good 4 times yesterday.
Did you? Wow.
Just because you're with them, you're being, and it's just a natural consequence of like compassionately being with another, as you just feel your own pain with them, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful moments. Yeah.
Is there any time you don't cry when someone is that vulnerable, and is showing so much emotion? Is it very common for you to to meet them where they are and just to feel their maybe pain or insecurity or challenge.
You know, it will be more where I'm at, probably more than where they're at.
Sure.
So it's like, you know, when you've built up tension over a period of time, and then it's like, oh, now I'm in a situation where I can't keep my composure anymore. Then there will be times when I'll just be more raw. And then there's that, like, am I going to go down this road or that road? Because the road is shut down. So I can cope with the situation. Or I'm going to, like, deep breath. I'm going to feel into it. I'm just going to let the emotions come up as they, but there's a centering in a way. I have to center and then allow myself to be present, and then whatever happens will happen, you know. I mean, I might even tell them they're being an asshole or an idiot. Like I don't want to confuse being centered with, like, oh, it's going to be pain. Sometimes it's just frustration, but like a third person frustration, like a loving, like I see my frustration, I love it, and now I get it communicated in an impersonal way.
Yeah.
So people can laugh with you at the absurdity of the situation they're in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it isn't just one-sided. Yeah. Compassion, I think sometimes people get confused with compassion. They think that it's always sad.
Sure.
And compassion can be like a friend just succeeded in something, and then you feel like the warmth of how that feels for you, and then you meet them in that. That's also very compassionate act. Yeah,
it's an act. It is very active.
Yeah,
because passion's in there, in the word, and I always think that is more of an active word.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's true. That's so interesting that you point that out. It's like it's the gravitation towards feeling someone else's pain, sadness. Yeah,
and then there's that question is, you know, when is it theirs and when is it yours? So how do you be present to your own and not like pull in theirs into your system, and then you get the disease of whatever it is they might not have healed.
Yeah.
And that's a fine balance. And I've spent, you know, a good part of my life feeling it, and then sort of feeling what it is for me, as opposed to their emotions now becoming my emotions or my problem. In fact, I'd almost say they're an inspiration to me.
Yeah.
Even their anger is an inspiration to me in a way.
Sure. Yeah, I used to get really inspired, but also slightly jealous when people would show emotion, because I just couldn't go there.
Oh, yeah.
I was just slightly triggered of like, God, I want that. Like, I feel how relieving that must be, like unapologetic, like just being yourself and not really being affected by your surroundings so much.
Yeah, my wife got really angry really angry. Like, there's very few things that'll get her angry. But we bought these plums or prunes from the UK, and they were very hard to get, and you can't get them in the Netherlands. So we got these prunes, and then they were meant for her mother as a gift. And so I had a guest come over, saying, "Want to eat? Oh, we got prunes here." So then I think I gave them 3 or 4 of these prunes, and then she came home. She saw this open, and she was so angry that she threw the prunes and just threw it on the ground, started stomping on the prunes, and just fully living the experience. And I'm just like, oh baby, I'm so happy you're having like an honest, like let those feelings go, like let them go. And she was surprised by my reaction, as if I was now the one who was responsible for her anger. Now I needed to defend, where I'm like, oh geez, this is the best. Go for it. Like,
that must be challenging for her. No.
I think
because it's a very common thing to expect. You're showing rage or emotion.
Yeah.
And there's a quite indirect thing. The reason that that's happening is because someone, you in this, has done something, and it might not be an intentional act, but it's definitely related to it. So you just wanting, oh, okay, yeah, great, let this out. But for me, is there a responsibility for you to just drop in and maybe just, you know, be more apologetic, or like what's
no, absolutely not.
So that's what I get from you. I know I'm going to get that from you.
I know you did that. That's why I was laughing. You're asking me a question, but you already know the...
Yeah, but people are going to be listening, and they're going to be like,
what a jerk this guy is. What? So unsympathetic, Okay, but let's go through the whole thing.
This is beautiful.
So let's be on. Like, I was so compassionate to her that she was grateful to me. This didn't go from a fight. It went from how much you love me to the point I could cry. Because what my wife saw was that I loved the fact that she could fully be who she was without judgment to that part of her. She had the space to just let it out. And of course we processed, and I apologized. I mean, I'm not dismissive, you know what I mean? That wouldn't be what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is like, bigger than this experience we're having is the quiet experience that we're not talking about, which we might see in another, but we maybe only have a few moments in life where we really get to be with them there. So what we had was an opportunity for me to be with her at one of those rare moments that happened once in 15 years, but it was a rare moment. But she's like, wow, you can also be for me there. It didn't turn into a fight. It didn't turn into, and then we'll still laugh at it together, and it's like a safe space for her.
But the other side of that would be why you're overreacting.
Oh, exactly.
And it's like, oh, this is too much. They're only prunes. And like, actually putting down her in this moment, that she's doing the wrong thing.
And then she'd feel shame about it. She'd feel like, wow, I can't be that way to him. Then she'd suppress it more and on and on. You can write that script already. So that's the consequence.
We witness it every day. There's like micro elements of that that's everywhere.
So like, by me not apologizing, I got the healthier relationship, where in general one would apologize and go into a codependency. I don't want you to feel that way, so I'm now gonna like tippy-toe around situations that might trigger you, which is what I was raised with. That my father was bipolar, chemically imbalanced. He would rage, and all I did in my childhood was dance around that rage, like that was it. So now it's like, oh, I'm not going to dance around anyone's rage. You can have it. It's not mine to take on.
So what do you do when people don't understand that's your approach? When they don't get why you're not meeting them where they are, in the sense of not just allowing them to be them, but maybe you're at such a distance that they don't understand it because it's so different to what they normally have in their life. And this just might have happened this week.
I was thinking it feels like it's the exact opposite of what you said.
Yeah.
So I think a challenge that we have is that you've presented it as a distance, like I'm separating myself from them.
I'm trying to describe what that would feel like.
And I would say I do it differently. They have an experience, and I think I said a few moments to you, all of our human experience are human to all of us. So if I make a joke or if I look at someone, I'm not looking at them. I'm saying, where is it true for me? So at that moment, it's all compassion. It's like, now I am with them in me. Now, they might not feel that yet, because if I'm feeling that part of me and laughing and loving on it, is not that other person has found space to do that for themselves yet. But the opportunity exists for them to meet me and say, wow, if he could heal or make peace with that part of himself, how would I maybe find that within myself? And I would say, what I see myself doing, right? And I articulated 100 ways. This is the first time I think I've articulated this way, is I'm modeling the piece of that and welcoming them to invite me in it, but without pressure. I don't say this is what you should, or this, it's more fun and play and laughter. I spend most of my life laughing.
You have a great laugh.
But it's not laughing at that individual. It's laughing and loving, and then that's sort of like the come play with me, you'll see it's really nice here.
So what do you then, what's the process when someone just doesn't get that? They're just not in the place to be independent. They are reliant on that codependency, because it's part of their identity.
Weirdly, it happens very infrequently for me. And it may happen infrequently because I choose where to do it or not do it.
Sure. So
I'm not indiscriminate. There is a radar, like, ding, that's someone who might be able to meet me there. It's not like, oh, okay, everybody's now going to, so I'd say my hit ratio is 90%. And for the 10%, I'll apologize profusely, take full responsibility, and then just slowly separate. So they don't have to leave thinking that I was ill-intended. That's just, he just has bad humor or whatever. But what I wouldn't do is like the 90% that I'd have this really I won't not be, call it the quote me, because I'm scared that 10% I might miss once, or in a year kind of thing. I wouldn't do that. But you miss. It's part of life, and most of the people will forgive you, and they, I'm not the first person that create a challenge for that person. So I'm not, I don't think, in that person's life who has a lot of things that they're avoiding, a lot of things they don't want to talk about because it triggers them. They're already projecting so much onto so many other people. I'm in a bucket of 100 other people in their lives. So, yeah. And maybe the only one that really apologized for maybe the discomfort I caused them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess what you realize in that is the connections that you do make through those situations are the most worthwhile and the only sustainable connections that you're going to have, the ones that are going to fill you up. So that's what I do get from you. There's this like unapologetic, I know I'm going to meet you, and you're going to tell me. You're going to tell me the truth, and then I can trust you, really. It comes down to that, right?
That's the hope.
You're not just trying to please me.
No. No, the last thing one would think is he's trying to please me,
Yeah.
But also that's tempered with sensitivity to the areas which may be so raw that it wouldn't be kind to push or in any way even point there if it's too sensitive or raw for the other. That's playing a game. That's not treating them with sort of some love and compassion.
I guess you have to judge in some regard. You'll have to sense into other people's experience, right?
And you'll be right sometimes, you'll be wrong. You'll assume that they'll be more open to certain things, and then they just aren't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So take us back to like your early years then, and how this was for you growing up. You mentioned your dad, and that was
a
big part of your journey.
There's the soft kids, the ones that are more sensitive, and I was certainly in that category, right? I think sometimes people might even thought I was gay because, hey, if he's that soft, then he must have some other sexuality traits. I think they combine that at times as well.
For sure.
And that softness and that kind of reflectiveness, when it's all about sports, it's all about creating an identity, feeling important. It wasn't always easy, and I at some point got good at running, got good in long jump, and like, oh wow, I have one thing in my life I can like create an identity around. And in America, sport is so important to identity. So that was kind of my outlet of call it my first like chosen identity where I could build some level of confidence. And of course, this is all with the backdrop of a abusive father, right? My parents separated when I was 10. So I thankfully got out of that for the most part, but I was always scared of him. So, I lived in constant fear of my father because he would rage. He would, for like no reason rage. He'd just be like in the house and all of a sudden screaming would come out and you'd be like, oh, what have I done? Like deep fear, right? And so, and that deep fear built a skill set of like, okay, I just saw Chris twitch in his left eye. Okay, he swallowed. Okay, I can see a nervousness come over him. So all of those micro expressions or those little things that other people might not key in on, I'm just zeroing in on his face. So I know it's coming in 5 minutes. It's coming in 3 minutes. Oh, it's probably best to leave now.
Yeah, I'm sensitive.
So that was the skill set that translated into abilities later in my life, because of course everyone has to cope with it. I used humor. That was how I coped. So I would laugh at the situations and say the things no one else was going to say, but with humor. And then in time I began to say, oh, this is actually a skill that translates into my business world. And I became a director of a big computer company with no skill, nothing in computers, nothing in marketing. But I became a director because this ability to communicate and this ability to make light of things build comfort in others. And then they said, okay, well, we'll put you as the director because we think you can manage the complexity here.
So when were you most in connection with your father?
Before he died.
Really?
Yeah, because we didn't talk for 10 years. He just disowned me. We had one of those moments where he said, "You're dead to me. You're out of the will. You're gone." And it was like 10 years passed. And then in those 10 years, I then did my own journey of personal responsibility, self-agency, or whatever we're going to call the term. And
how old are you? When was this?
This was 30s. This is in my 30s.
Okay.
Probably 30, 35 years old, I guess, something like that.
And what did he die from?
He had a heart attack. Yeah. But it was like the beauty of the moment was that, there's such a societal idea of what a father or a mother or a brother or sibling should be, which we don't even know how much that's been socialized into us. Like the idea, my dad should be, and I told myself story after story, like everyone does. Like every time we've been wronged by any loved one, it's like there's this like lie, I guess I'd say, we tell ourselves that they shouldn't be that way. And if they were just another person on the street, we'd say, oh, that's just the way they are. But since they have a label, we've applied meaning of what they should be to us, and therefore we hold them accountable to that meaning without even knowing we've done that.
Okay, let's dive into this because there's a lot in there for me.
Okay.
Because I've had this story around the craving the love from parents that I know I'll never get. So I have to cut that umbilical cord, like really just like cut. You have to kill your parents because you're just going to be in suffering. And you can relate that to a lot of different things, I suppose. But it's a very big one in our culture around not really feeling or getting the acceptance that we know we need. Or I crave that. I've craved that for many years of like, can they just meet me where I want to be met? Yeah. But is that a story? Because I guess I relate it back to, ancestrally, we'd have had many people meeting different needs potentially in a tribe, in a village, and it wouldn't have been all on one or two people. But I put it on one or two people. Yeah. I know I do that. Yeah. And I have lived with, and I feel like I'm going to always live with, knowing I'm never going to get met where I want to be met. And just full radical acceptance and love of just who I am and beyond words. This is more like, this is more relational. And the way a lot of my friends, and likely you, if we spent a lot of time together, will probably meet me, it's just seeing into my eyes and just fully being present with me, because you've done enough work to actually not harbour so much frustration, resentment, and your own wounds to not be able to see me fully. So I've craved that so much from my parents. I feel like until they die, I won't be able to fully grieve it, because whilst they're living, I'm still like hoping and like wanting it.
Oh, wow. So this is a hard one to answer, because I can't meet you there. Again, it goes back to the Einstein. A problem can't be solved within the context in which it's been created. Yeah. And you're saying, Andy, I'm trying to solve this thing in this context. And as you speak out the context, I mean, it's all makes sense. And if I was a psychiatrist, we'd sit here for 3 years and you say, oh, Chris, yes. Yeah, I can get that's really rough. Yeah. How is it going? Oh, it was a bad week. It was a good week. It was challenging. Oh, I had the interaction with my dad, and he sent me this text message, and all that rage came up from that childhood. And then it was Christmas, and he said this dismissive thing to me, like, Chris, when are you going to grow up? And I thought, why can't you just give me what I want? That love, like whatever. Yeah, that whole narrative. Now, imagine if you said, I'm going to give them all the love that I wish they'd given me. And I'm going to give that to them as if they were my kids. You walk in the door, Dad, you're doing such a good job. I'm so proud of what you've become in your life. You've really, like I really aspire to be more like you in so many ways. And you say the same to your mom. Mom, you don't know how much I've missed you, how supported I feel by you. How much who I am today is because of you. Like, imagine if you gave them that. Like, how does that shift everything in a moment?
Yeah, it would, for sure.
So my dad
moves the needle.
My dad, who you on paper would have been not the best dad in the world, right? When I had the moment, my biggest breakthrough was when my mentor said to me, so your dad kicked you out of the house. He disowned you. He basically said, if you die, I don't care. He said it literally. Oh, that's unforgivable. Oh my God, what a horrible man. Like, I could have made that narrative the rest of my life, which I did, by the way. And then the mentor said to me, why did he do it? And then I could cry again because I said, because he loved me. And he just didn't know how to deal with the fear of me always going away. So now I look at the fact he loved me, the fear, and then this stupid rage. I could look at that rage, which I looked at my whole life and judged, or I could just sit with the reality that he was incapable, and that's how it looked. And from that moment forward, it was never the same. I never told that story ever again with the attachment to it. I mean, it was told, but never attached. And that understanding shifted everything. So I called him and I apologized to him for never fully seeing him. And that changed everything. He never had anyone apologize to him his whole life. I can guarantee you that. He was always such an asshole. Lovable. So that was the moment. And then we became incredible friends. You know, he always told me that, he said, where did you get all this insight? Was what he'd say. And he said, and the weird thing is if you didn't succeed in business, I don't think I could trust the insight. It was like he needed the idea that I was, because then I would have just been some guru or spiritualness that he couldn't trust. So the fact that I did was kind of humorous. Say
that again. So if he didn't succeed in business,
he always said that if I didn't succeed in business, that he would have had a hard time trusting the insight. Because he also was someone who needed to see achievement in his life for his own identity.
Of course.
So it was a humorous thing, like that he needed that in order to trust the insight, right?
Okay, so how did you get there? How were you able to, you said it just came to you, that he didn't get the love. He's never been seen. Yeah.
Oh, clearly.
He's never been seen. So how did you arrive to that? Like those maybe 10 years when you didn't speak, like what things do you think got you there to arriving at that question being asked to you? Why did he say those?
Well, I think like what happens is that I lived in Vienna and I did my formative kind of building ego and identity moment of my life. Anyone from like 30 up to kind of 40 plus might have this. I'm building, I'm growing, I need to be special, I need to be important. It's all this very identified success time. And in that time, I became increasingly unhappy. I think a lot of people obviously have that experience. We see through the illusion of the idea we had that we were going to be happy or better or feel good after achieving something. The more we get to the top of the mountain, we're like, oh, well, apparently that wasn't it. But I think I had 3 years. I wasn't happy with myself. I looked in the mirror over and over again. So this, like, really, is this your one wild and precious life? Like, this isn't, I'm helping some computer company that basically that technology be obsolete and then I'll be gone. And really, that was my life. It was those questions over and over again. And so then I just said I was going to do a life do-over. So I literally sold everything I owned and then lived in an attic space and moved from Vienna to Amsterdam. And I started over with zero. Also, in an industry I knew nothing about was coaching and mentoring. I hadn't done that ever. And like, again, the world needs another coach and mentor like a hole in the head, because everybody thinks, hey, all my wisdom and insight is valuable to others, until you go into the world and, you know, even if
I have this thing around coaches are just coaching other coaches.
exactly,
And it's just a perpetual. No one's doing any work. We're
No
just
one's just
coaching
coaching.
people how to coach.
and then the best is the competition of coaches. Like,
Yeah.
that's your method. Well, I think my method. Like, you're like, oh God, we're arguing around, you know, methods of self improvement. It's just crazy. So yeah, that echo chamber was something that, you know, you also have to move through and understand. But in time, I spent that time, I would say, less coaching and mentoring anyone else other than myself. And in that decade, it was a lot of quiet, a lot of reflection. Probably like business was secondary to my own development, and I needed to be gentle on myself, but I needed to continue in a direction where I was going to get closer to whatever it was I was avoiding. And that just happened over that decade. And then I think through that process, a natural consequence was that then I started to see through the projection that I had that a father should be a certain way. Like I didn't even realize that was socialized into me. How far down the rabbit hole do you have to go to realize, wow, I've been socialized that that's what a father is supposed to be, or a mother is supposed to be?
Do you not think there's anything innate about it?
No, there is.
Yeah.
But there's still socialized aspects to it all. I mean, I think that clearly we go for the mother's breast, and there's an instinct. There's a deep desire that's beyond our comprehension. But underneath that, there's this awareness that, wow, that's also part of how I've been either socialized or what was even from birth. Right? How far can we get in contact with that?
Which then projects onto them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then imagine how your personal responsibility to your world, if even your parents have no, and I say zero, influence over how you feel you may have been wronged. They're just another person out there who you have the opportunity to decide what kind of relationship you want with them.
I love that. That's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did a family constellations recently.
How was that?
Incredible. It was incredible. It was like a battle reenactment of like 17 people in a room, and like 7 of them brought in to represent different people. Do you know the idea of constellations?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it was my first. I've known about it since I met Tony. Actually, told me about it, and yeah, it was powerful to really be an observer and just to watch people just express what they're feeling in the moment, and then how that impacts this constellation and other people in response to that. And everyone is representing, just my really immediate family, the people I've actually spoke to and interacted with. We didn't go any further than that, but the women in this constellation were like the significant ones that I was really like moved by. We were silent, adopted this position. One just starts really just like oh God, like crying, just expressing so much, and it's just like what is happening, and it's kind of confusion. There's confusion there, but there's also like curiosity and just complete observation of like, okay, this is just an exercise. But what comes with that is, and there's projection in that, because I'm projecting and we do this in life, of course, project onto others, maybe elders, like what they mean to us or what their responsibilities are, or like the dad, or even in relationship, you project onto your partner what is, true from an early age of what you have related to love. But yeah, my grandfather and the people that were really like embodying the stance, the posture, the face of, I could just see it all. I was like, how is this even happening? How is this true? And then my mother was picked. And as soon as I looked at her, I couldn't, nothing in my body. I've never had like a reaction to something that hasn't been like maybe more psychedelic or hallucinate. And I just, my body just couldn't go there, and I just couldn't look at. I just started crying, and I was just like, no one in the room would have represented my mother better than that person. I don't know, in my mind.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that was her, young.
Yeah.
I was young. Anyway, the significance of this was understanding that at the hands of men, women have been really hurt and confused, and it was just a real shift of like, wow. Yeah, it just puts things in context.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, because since this is going to be a podcast viewed by others, I think it's also nice to kind of give more meaning to that type of work, because people might not understand how that constellation.
To be honest, I don't know how it works. I know the concept.
Yeah, well, close your eyes, right? like anybody on the podcast, close your eyes right now, and like imagine for yourself if you had the opportunity to engage your emotions around the dynamics within your family without needing to feel any defense. So you basically, you get to sit in the room and you get to have every single person in your life in that space. And then you place each of these individuals in the space relational to yourself, in the position that they symbolize or the emotion that they give you. So you take your father, your mother, your family, your brothers and sisters, and then some will be closer, some will be outside of a circle you might have made, some might be facing away, some might have like the father in between you and your mother, and creating this, call it almost a mind map, immediately reveals so much with no words. And that's the journey, is how do I begin to make peace with these dynamics which our mind will almost hijack any moment it can to go away from the discomfort. So using this constellation work, we're given this magic opportunity to visualize the dynamic and then let that tell us all we need. No one needs to explain it to us. No one needs to kind of tell us what we already know. In the visualization, it's almost like observed from everyone who's part of that dynamic, and it's like undeniable. And that's what makes that type of work so beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. And the big piece is that all these people have things that they're acting upon within themselves, and they don't really have any understanding of why. They don't need to, and I don't need to know why people in this space are maybe hesitant to go towards someone, or they want to move away, or the facilitator will be conducting the whole thing and asking certain people questions. But the real root of it is to bring awareness, context, compassion, empathy for everyone in the space who really is having their part to play in context of their experience and their upbringing and their family. And it really just does that. It brings it brings everything into reality.
Yeah.
In context of their experience. And I think lastly, I'll just say the feelings and emotions coming up within me whilst it was playing out was the most significant. Is what I have to go off. But I am aware of the people moving in the space, the people communicating to each other, representing my family, knowing that they don't even know who my family are, but what that reveals to me. It's like, how do I feel in relationship to why this person is distant from this person, and just what that evokes in me.
Yeah.
What stories do I have about that? Because it's not real. It's not like it's removed from the actuality of my parents. But
I think that's what makes it so powerful.
Yeah.
Is you can you can take it in without needing to confront it.
Yes.
Because for your parents there, all of a sudden you would have to take in their interpretations of things.
Yeah.
Now you get to sit with your own representation of your life
Yeah. And
right before you, and then say, well, what is this telling me? That's a massive amount of insight with very little.
yeah, and owning everything that's coming up within me, because I'm participating in it.
Yeah.
I'm participating in the story and the projections and the situation.
Yeah.
Yes. Beautiful that we've gone down that route, because I think it can be the biggest key. We hold on to so much
Yeah.
as humans,
Yeah.
and they always talk about like getting your needs met as a child. It's like, I don't know anyone who's got it, it got it. I don't know. There's people who don't need to go there, and they don't.
Well, I mean, it's, sorry to interrupt you, but it would be like to say, I always find it humorous when I'm with somebody who's intellectualized their emotions and starts speaking about their emotions as if it's not them. They fixed it or solved it, or they're beyond it. And then
You give an example.
Example is, so I work with a lot of people, I don't want to name names, but I spend a lot of time like in San Francisco with venture capitalists and people who are very, very biohacking and very like, I got it. I got this figured out. And what I laugh at is that they'll talk about their emotions while they're not present to the emotion. So an example, trying to think, how can I say without revealing, just conscious of people's.
Because you can obviously say in relate to your past.
In myself. Oh, I can talk to my own experience for sure.
No, but just in terms of people who are relating intellectually to emotions and not
embodying any of those emotions. I can talk to myself. Let me go back to an example. It's always easier to speak about myself. So the first book I wrote was called The Last Letter. Actually, a very good book. That it was the first one I wrote, and the humor is if you write books, you kind of assume that, the first one probably isn't going to be as written as well as the second or the third. But what you realize is the fact that it's not as well written maybe makes it even more interesting, right?
Okay.
It's the rawness of the that you only learn. There's a lot of insecurity.
I assume that you just get better now.
You assume you get better, but I laughingly realized that sometimes it's the rawness of the not as well written, which people will identify with more.
Okay.
Really well written books with not a lot of wealth or depth are not going to be. I'd rather read a really messy book that I can relate to than a really well written book that doesn't have a lot. But sorry for that segue. But if I go into this last letter and in the book, I wrote that book at a time that my mentor died, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. It was a bit like, I succeeded in my business life. I left it. I lived with like a monk for 10 years, actually really like very much stoic kind of life. He died of cancer and a heart attack finally. And then I'm like, what am I going to do? No clue. And shit, let's write a book. And I didn't know what the book was going to be. It's just like, I'm going to write a book. And then I started writing. I thought, look, the book, I just trusted my intuition. The book will tell me. So I wrote that book, and the book did well, like scary well. Like, whoa, like this is one or two competitions. It started gravitating towards the spiritual memoir genre of book writing. I'm like, okay, this is. So I thought, it's doing well. I've got to do something. I said, I'm gonna do it. So I got out of the shower. I said to my wife, I'm gonna travel the U.S. for 3 months. And I'm going to do 60 sessions where I ask someone to write a letter to a loved one as if it's the last letter they're ever going to send them. And I said, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. And she's, you're going through your midlife crisis. What are you doing? But she knows me well enough to know she's just going to say, I love you and come back safe. So that was the journey. Now, the first session I did, I said, I don't know what this thing is going to teach me. I'd never done a session like this before. I had 60 planned, but hadn't ever done one. And I'm like, but I'm going to commit to being present to whatever shows up. And so the first session I said, my mom was killed by a drunk driver. And like I said it, and I heard my words, and I was so disconnected from the words. Like I could say something that was the most painful thing in my life, and I said it as if it was like, could you pass me the cheese? So then I like stopped the whole session, and like I sat there and I said, wow, my mom was killed by a drunk driver. And now I have to go there again. I have to. I get to. Like, I'm not going to let those words separate from the emotion of those words. And that was the commitment. And I didn't even know it then before I started, but I did that first session. And then I cried 60 sessions. Like every time I was like, I'm not going to step away from that pain. I've done it 30 years. I'm not going to do it anymore. And it was hard. I'd be in rooms that were like clearly didn't feel safe. I'm not going to step away from it. I was in it with my own family, who I basically hid the depth of my pain all those 30 years.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to, and I can feel the pain now. It's like, I'm going to own up to now what I couldn't own up to then. And I just did that 60 times over and over again. And you can imagine I'm crying at the beginning of a session where I'm asking you to write a letter to a loved one like it's your last.
Well, what you just said there, it's just so moving. Hiding the pain. Like, yeah, hiding the pain from people that don't want me to hide the pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, just really going there with that, but not like intellectualizing it.
Yeah.
Not trying to figure out why. And trying to, because my head starts to justify why I don't do that.
Yeah. And I did that for 30 years. And it'd always be a subtle, because they can't be trusted. This isn't the right environment.
They won't be able to hold it.
They won't be able to hold it. I'd said 100 things. And then one day I said, screw it. I'm not doing that anymore. And then it was like, okay, now it was like a grand experiment, because I don't know how, I was in some weird environments. Like, okay, here we go again. Let's see how this, And the weird thing was that having so many experiences like this compressed in such a short time, like I was shocked people were meeting me over and over again. So it was like, it gets emotional. Like, it's the discovery, well, I didn't realize they could always meet me in the vulnerability. But I always assumed they couldn't, so that I could protect myself. And that was the grand...
Yeah, you're justifying why you don't have to go there.
Yeah. I did it most of my life. So in that, I met people that, old farmers in the Midwest who probably never went to a spiritual thing, nor would they have thought that this event was going to be that spiritual or whatever we call it, But they just saw the humanity, and that was enough. We didn't need to talk about anything. They just said, this is a real person having a real human experience. I have those experiences. He's going to stand up and be in his vulnerability. I'm going to meet him there. And I was shocked at the people who were meeting me over and over again, shocked. People that I would have assumed or discounted in my former life, like, oh, they'll never be that, or they'll never go there. The clothes they wear kind of make me assume that they're protected or held. In other cases, it would be the opposite. Someone you would totally expect. And then they'd not even come close. So it was really beautiful. Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think part grief plays in this? Like, how grieving is not something we see modeled or know how to do, and how removed we are from birth, death. Grieving, Stephen Jenkinson talks about as a skill.
Yeah.
And there's phases and there's stages of it.
Yeah.
And there's rebirth and there's birth, iterations of that throughout our life, but not completing that cycle.
Yeah.
And numbing because we don't know how, or
Yeah.
I don't know how to complete a cycle, so I just leave it and just
Exactly. Yeah. We'll put that to the side for the moment. Yeah. I would say, we had a quick talk before, when I kind of teased you pointing at something, and then you looked at me and said, yeah, Andy, but that's the same for you, as if I was, I don't know, in some way, pointing out something of you to like almost maybe get superiority or some sort of like, I see you, where I was laughing at you like, are you kidding me? You want me to go into the depth of where it is that way for me right now today? Like no, there's no separation there. And so when you said grief, I would say all human experience, including grief. Maybe grief is harder for some, but maybe self-adulation is harder for another.
Sure.
My wife is from Indonesia. We're now like in America. I have to help her understand that this individuality, this hyper individuality in the U.S. is far more important than consensus or group cohesion. She can't. Yeah. So now she has to learn. Oh, I have to learn how to promote myself and tell people how good I am for them to trust that I'm competent. So for you, it may be grief. For her, it may be a belief system that she has around the idea that the group is more important than the individual. And so it's this weird, like, we kind of, we were dealt our hand. And it's like, okay, here's your hand. What are you going to play? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a spectrum of reasons, isn't there? Really, when you get down to it. And that's not really that doesn't seem the most effective strategy, to go into every single reason and to understand it, because again, you're just further intellectualizing.
Yeah, and I'll say, when I'll work with somebody, for instance, I'll say, take the one that makes sense most at this moment, and then forget it again, because tomorrow you'll tell another story around the same thing, and that'll be the way that you narrate it today. And you'll narrate it again tomorrow differently. So in a way, your mind may struggle to find answers. So if it needs an answer, give it the answer, but don't attach to it, because it'll evolve. And then if you're stuck in trying to get to the answer of everything, then you'll never feel complete, because you'll always think, oh, there's something outside of me I got to figure out still. I got to figure that out. Got to figure it out. And I'd rather just sit with, am I feeling connected or disconnected? Well, I'm not connected. What's going on? Just allow that to sort of become more conscious. I'm connected again. I don't need to think about anything else. I don't want to, because that's just a distraction from maybe like where disconnection might arise. Yeah. So
what things did the people that come to your events then go on to? Did you stay in touch with any people? Did it like? From which events now do we speak to? The 60 letters. Oh yeah. And you asked people to read. What changed for people? Did you ever like? Oh, sometimes big things changed for people, like really biggies, right? I mean, in one event, someone wrote a letter to divorce their wife that they were going to see an hour later. So they came to the session and wrote the letter, and they said, this is the letter that I'm going to be reading to my wife in an hour. Wow. And so there were biggies like that. Some of the ones that were like really quite, because when I did the 60 sessions, I wanted to be in very different environments. So I went to a retirement home and was with like these literally 100-year-old, not like 100-year-old individuals. Yeah. And like, it shocked me. Who do you think the 100-year-old person writes the letter to? Like, who do you think that is? Could be the partner, a child, an old boss, or... Yeah, all wrong. They write it to their mother and father. Wow, yeah. And that confused me. Like, like, so you get to be 100. You're thinking, oh,
It must be to the
Really?
daughter. It must be to the son.
Mm.
They wrote the letters to their parents. And that blew my mind. You get to be 100 years old, and the person who you are in that moment of that weakness that you're still longing and connected to is that person who gave you that love when you were helpless as the kid.
Mm.
And it's almost like I'm helpless as the adult now, and that's the one that I'm missing.
Most connected to something very deeply spiritual about that.
Yeah, that was just like,
The person
wow.
you've become, or like a version of that you maybe fully now understand what it was like to
Yeah.
be that older.
Mm.
Well, yeah, when you reach the same age as your parent, maybe it's like my
Yeah.
parent was this age.
Yeah.
Have you heard of long distance love bombs?
I mean, I haven't, but I can imagine, you know.
I think it's about. Did you say it? Because this feeds into maybe the
Yeah.
appreciation letters. Is that what you said?
No, somebody else talked about
Was
appreciation
it?
letters. Yeah.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
it's the same concept.
Yeah, yeah. So on my last men's retreat, we I definitely don't go into detail, but it was we wrote a letter to our fathers,
Mm.
and then at the end, without any context, at the end I said, "Now you have a choice," and it was Father's Day.
Huh.
Very poignant, and we're here as men, not with our fathers, but it's the most significant because we're here to show up better for our fathers, to be a better father. And the choice was you can burn it or you keep it. And that little moment where people knew that they were like, oh, now I have a choice. And that was like the most empowering, I think, because, yeah, what's the easier option?
And I have a question. What percentage burned it?
It was very split. It was half. It was half. It was half.
Oh, that's
I
fun.
thought it might be all of them. It was but yeah, no, it was split. And I didn't know, I know the context. I know maybe people just wanted to keep it for themselves, just to remind themselves of what they wrote. Maybe they wrote it for themselves, who knows. But yeah, it was I think it's maybe you just write that letter.
Yeah.
To write that letter, and that changes everything.
Yeah.
Let alone whether they get it or not. It's like the act of doing it.
Yeah.
The act of going there, having a lovely little structure that allows you and accountability and support in that moment collectively, doing something like that collectively can change a lot.
I held it probably a little bit looser.
Okay.
I was like, no, I don't even want you to feel the pressure. In fact, I told people they could write to an idea. They could write to anything because I wanted them to feel not even pushed in any way to write or that it needed to go to a loved one even, Yeah. I had people write to exhaustion, to death.
Yeah.
To a lot of people writing to people who committed suicide. Very, very painful letters to hear those. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, I guess then you realize how many.
And but the unresolvedness around suicide has a very painful kind of a trail of people wondering what they could have done, and so it's a different. I saw in those sessions a different grief. It wasn't just the loss of someone, but it was the feeling of helplessness of what could I have done, and a lot of that was built into that pain.
Regret.
The regret. Yeah. The idea that if I had only done something, maybe, just maybe, I could have saved them.
So I'm always fascinated where that really is rooted.
Yeah.
The hope for a better past, or I think that's like forgiveness is letting go. There's a quote: "Forgiveness is letting go of hope for a better past."
Yeah.
Because you're just like, intellectually we get that.
Yeah.
You couldn't and you can't. So surely acceptance is the only way.
Yeah, I always feel it like the word that is more connected to my experience would be surrendering. Acceptance feels in my kind of way of experiencing like I accept the thing that I don't really like, but I'm going to make peace with it because if I don't accept it, it's going to be a problem. That's my kind of narrative around it, where the surrender is like, oh, I'm just making peace with what is over and over again. I'm just surrendering to this. What it is what it is what it is. And like it's like a softer energy.
Sure.
Yeah.
So a bit more about surrender. How would you really define it for someone that just have no? Because it's also a word that it's kind of exists in some spaces, but other people just don't know what you mean by it, and it feels passive. I don't know if it features in Stoicism, but I don't know if it might not.
Yeah, it's funny when I look at words, I almost don't look at the word as a definition. I look at it as my human experience of a thing. So it's not like, Andy, how do you define surrender? It's like, no, Andy, what is it inside of your body? Like, where does it like feel, and when does that feeling show up, and how often in a day or a week or a month does that surrender thing kind of materialize? And I often see that it kind of bubbles up when there is the whole sort of version of more of this Buddhist understanding of attachment. So it may look something like, I really want that. I really want that. I really want that. And now I start to like visualize, get connected to, attached to this thing, whatever it is in the future. Now I'm so attached, I don't even know I'm attached to it. So then something might come up.
You're so attached to it, you don't even know you're attached to it.
Yeah.
So good.
And then something comes up,
Yeah.
which then makes me feel disconnected, frustrated, angry. And then I'm sitting in the moment like, wow, I didn't realize how much I wanted that until something got in the way of it. And then I'm like, wow, okay, so what's going on? And then that's when I start to usually make some sort of reclamation. Like, I can't have that, and it's okay. It's not going to work out the way I really wanted or planned, and it's okay. It's so far away from what I would have really have wanted, and that's okay. So I actually just fully make peace with that state without like, call it spiritually bypassing. It's not like I'm not convincing my logical self, Andy, tell yourself 20 stories so now you don't feel bad about it. That's not the experience of it. The experience of it is a deep grounded, it is okay. Like, I know it's okay. And it always has been okay. And now I see again where I lost that connection because I wasn't even aware it happened. So then it's a gift to like say, wow, now I know what the feeling of being centered in my body, in my kind of beingness. Yeah.
I feel like it is flow state for me also.
Yeah.
So the best definition of flow state is like that balance between discipline and surrender.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's the before and after, almost like having the real discipline to maybe acknowledge that, sit with it, but then it's like surfing. You have to be really disciplined to fucking keep showing up, but you have to surrender to.
Yeah.
It's like anything that's like brings you into that moment a little bit more.
Yeah. A lot of people also get confused by me and how I work because
we're going to go there next.
I work really, really diligently to do things really, like, in my mind, well. Like, whatever is in my writing or in my work with others or whatever I'm doing. And then I'm okay with whatever happens.
Yeah.
And it's an honest okay. It's not like, let me suppress. No, it's like, really, like, I'm going to do this well. And I do it well because that's the way I want to do it.
Yeah.
But if I want to do it well because I'm pushing for an outcome, then I'm going to lose connection. So I do it well because I just want to do things well. And hey, from this moment forward, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I had a really beautiful moment where I actually saw a trap I fell into where I have the luxury of working with people who have more influence at times. And one of those individuals, who I'm not going to name, he's the head of a big media thing. And I said, well, can you throw the dog a bone? I need some help here. Like, help me get into this magazine, one of the bigger ones.
Were you very direct?
Oh, yeah, very direct, which I would never do usually because he has influence enough that if he says, can you do this favor? It's like, he doesn't want to do it. But he loves the book. He's read them all, but this is big. And I said, so you're not really asking a favor, you're suggesting. So he got me in, and then I felt Andy, whatever it is, it'll be fine. So I wrote this very nondescript message to this, person who heads the big magazine. And they were very welcoming. I think they had to be a little bit because the friend who introduced us. But then I went to bed at night. I was like, well, Andy, you totally surrendered. And I'm like, but you really want this. This is big. This is fun. This is what you... So then I woke up and said, I stepped away from the moment. I didn't say I really want this as well. I really want this, and it's okay if it doesn't happen. So the next morning I wrote 4 articles. The next day, 4 articles. Good, solid articles. I was really happy with. And I said, hey, listen, my apologies. I realized I sent you an old book and told you I could rewrite 2 chapters. Here are 4 articles. If any one of these is in line with kind of where you imagine, take 1 or more of these articles and we can, run with those in this section of the magazine. So is the point being is I made so much peace with letting go.
Yeah.
I also didn't embrace I want to do this. I want to do it well. And I laughed at myself, but I recovered quick and,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's your mindset around seeing the gold in what is true for you in the moment of where you're falling short or where you're not seeing all the parts of you. And then very quickly, as you built up over time, that sensitivity to acknowledge, I'm not fully expressing or holding that, and then using that to create more fucking stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'd like to go into you a little bit more and how you work and how you operate.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure on the question, but it's you in let's just take this space as an example of the last 4 days that we spent together.
Yeah.
Because people get to know you, I believe, quite quickly.
Be sure.
And you're very honest in your approach.
Yeah.
There's as you could always use the word unapologetic. But say more about the consequence of that for you. How do you live your life? Because give us some more context of just how you approach things and how you step into a space. Because I don't know the relevant question to get you to kind of envelope into that a little bit more. But I'm so curious about how you do operate in the world. Could you just give some context of how you do intentionally step into circles and be more you and welcome more of your experience and when things come up, what do you think your skills are in maybe group community settings?
Well, it's a big question. If I had to say it, and it feels so weird for me to say this to you, honestly, and I've never said this, right? This is honestly on this. I mean, I think I said it in the sense of never on a podcast. I get paid to be me. That's it. I just get paid to be me. It feels beautiful to say that. And because I'm me in the unapologetic form, there's a resonance, and some people like me, some people like me less.
Yeah.
But the people that like me, they really like me. They were oh yeah, we want more of that. And then what happens is that there's sort of a group that you kind of coalesce around. I told you, I don't leave a meeting without saying I love you. That's are you kidding me? Am I going to join a meeting where I'm not going to say I love you? Are you really? We're going to separate, you and I. We worked together 5 years. The fact that we're departing, does that mean that all of a sudden I'm going to sort of say, I'm not going to work with friends anymore because I don't like the feeling? No. We work with friends because it's hard to say goodbye, but we're not going to lose connection in that process. And if you step away, then I'm not going to blame you for it, but I'm going to say, I love you. I'm here. I know it's not easy. We'll meet when you're comfortable. So it's how do you stay with a level of consistent and integrity so that however you do or whatever you do or however you show up in the world doesn't change because the conditions change. Hard, easy, lot of money, little money, difficult client, easy client? How is it just, I am how I am, and now it'll show up in whatever shape and form here? And
was there a period where you had to really like practice it and like really sit with it and constantly just intentionally show up in that way and bring it to your awareness? Be like, no, this is how I want to show up. This is how I want to be.
what do you mean? It's every day. It's not like one day.
But I feel like it's a natural progression. It's just like who you are now, and you have to think too much.
Like the discipline, I think, is more, okay, I'm in the group of 20. Okay, stomach. Oh, this doesn't feel good. Okay, I can feel stomach raising up. Oh, this is bad. Oh, he just projected. Oh, she just offended. Oh, he believes something that he's not revealing. Oh, so it's like just the waters are rising over my head, right? So I see the dynamic.
Sure.
Not because I'm looking at the other, because I'm feeling everything that they're doing in my own system. I know that part of me.
Yeah.
So when I'm in a group, I'm not looking, someone once said, you're judging everyone in the group. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm seeing myself reflected in every single interaction. Yeah. Oh, that was what I did 2 days ago. Oh, that's what I did when I was 15, or that's what I did when I was 25, or I remember. And sometimes there's one person and I can't see it in myself.
Sure. Yeah.
Not that I need to, but it's like almost like, where is that? It happened like 2 months ago. I'm with a client and I'm like, I don't get it.
What was the thing?
I don't get it. And I'm just sitting there and now I'm like, I spent 2 days meditating on this. Like, what is it? I can't feel into this. Oh. And then it hit me. It's like, oh, it's Asperger's syndrome. It's Asperger's. It's Asperger's. My God, I can't get it. It's like, that's it. It's it. Because I was relying on my standard bag of tricks. The stuff like, oh, I'm playing soccer, football, whatever country, and I'm kicking the ball right in the goal. And it's like, and then the person kicks it to the side. What are you doing? The ball was right there. It's like all you have to do is kick it in like this. And then he kept kicking it aside. I'm thinking, am I losing it? What's going on? Like, no blame to him. I take all response. And then I asked him to get tested. Oh yeah, I was in his 30s, late 30s. I don't know. Like I said, no, you got to go get tested. And then he was moderate to strong. That's what the result was in this test, right? Moderate to strong. But
he wasn't so aware of it.
No, or maybe he was, but he didn't necessarily see that it was so critical in the situation I was involved in.
Did anyone else kind of feel into that? No.
Did anyone what?
Like in his experience in his life?
I mean, everyone, of course. Everyone was experiencing it. That was clear. The fact that they maybe weren't able to bring it forward to him, they just saw him as a difficult individual. I didn't see him as difficult. He was very authentic.
Yeah.
Very, very I love this individual, but oh my, was it challenging to support, in a way that I fell back on my old bag of tricks that I thought would always work, because it follows intuition, it follows common sense, it follows normal social accepted practices of interacting, and none of it worked.
Yeah. I mean, I guess when you see people's stuff playing out, people's triggers, people's projections, people's hesitations or their reluctances or their over-pleasing or whatever it might be, just the spectrum of, stuff. It is rooted though in like protection, over connection, safety, fear. Like they're rooted in like the basic stuff though, in terms of what you're seeing in other people. You can reference to be like, oh yeah, that's where I do that. That's what I've seen. And you can maybe offer some gold to them if they're open, because you've experienced it too, because you're human and you've gone there and you've understood these things, you've meditated and you've been and you've sat with. But the complexity of being human, like, is there ever stuff that plays out? I mean, you just demonstrate one example, but I'm constantly seeing things that I'm like, I have no reference for. I'm like, I just don't know. until I ask them,
Yeah,
until I
exactly.
like bring them into
Yeah.
themselves and try and get to the root, and then I might not know. I'll bring on the
Yeah.
podcast.
But I mean, then I get very, very curious.
Sure.
And normally I'll be vulnerable in my curiosity, so they see there's no double agenda. It's hard for people to ask questions without a assumption in the question. It's very, very hard for people to do that. But if you like see, I do have a judgment, then I'll usually tell them my judgment. Like I'll be open about the judgment, and then it's not an issue
I
again.
wish you were in that men's circle.
Yeah.
I really do. I'd love to be in a men's circle with you.
Yeah.
Because judgment was coming up for me,
Yeah.
and I was expressed it, but I didn't want to share it.
Oh yeah.
I didn't feel safe to share it,
Yeah.
which was interesting.
Yeah.
But I felt like really happy with that, like just awareness, and I communicated to one person, but it was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also.
By the way, sorry, if I
Yeah,
may
yeah.
touch on it, you said something that was two things. So when you'll use words that I can't identify with emotionally, I'll say, "Oh, that doesn't
resonate
with the feeling or the expression of it." And then when you said you have gold to offer them, like I don't feel that way.
Do you not?
No.
I think so.
What?
I think so. For
No,
me,
I get it. I no,
You
it's
just
not-
don't. You get.
I
what that
totally
would
understand
feel
why
like,
you would
yeah.
say that, but the feeling is I want to sit together with you in a corner and cry together. That's the feeling. I want to hold you at the weakest point of your
That might be
existence.
the gold.
I by the way, it's not a question of that not being gold. I don't want to. I'm not. It's almost the funny thing is that the sensibility of it. The reason why I'm spending time qualifying that is because this feeling that actually we need to do anything for anyone else, that we can offer them something, is still in this paradigm that I'm actually not really feeling into. It's not that it's not there. It's not that I'm also not participating.
It's got flavors of the unsolicited advice, though, hasn't it?
Oh, some of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it's like, wow, I see you.
Yeah.
I love you for who you are. And like I can see you so well that maybe, just maybe, you'll open up to certain things you weren't comfortable opening up to with others. And we can share another space that's outside of this paradigm of fixing and healing and trying to get somewhere. And hey, I've been at this for 6 years. Maybe there's another person who might be able to fix or heal this thing in me. Well, let's leave the fixing and healing away for a moment. Let's just be here without any fixing and healing, and like just share a space where maybe the fixing and healing isn't necessarily required anymore. And then maybe you'll see that the fixing and healing was part of the paradigm that kept one stuck. And that's what, like,
And the only way that's possible, and
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, is if you, in every situation, are completely true to yourself and love yourself and act from that place and just bring everything in front to be seen, to be witnessed, and love yourself so much that people who stand next to you can feel that
I would say so.
and have the permission to do the same.
It would be back to Gandhi.
Yeah.
I want to be representing and be doing the things that I want to see in the world. So if I'm present to my emotion, if I'm being authentic in whatever shape and form that comes, then I hope that you see that I'm modeling behavior that you can also start to feel in yourself. And that would be, if I'm living like up to whatever standard that, let's say, I wish for my own life, that would be it. That you'd say, wow, I want to be more like that. Not necessarily Andy, but consistent to the things that are going on inside of me, and not shifting my behavior because of the conditions around me.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the nexus of this. I love that, man. I love that we arrived there. There was a quote from Gabor Mate that I listened to recently that says, there's the pain of suppressing your emotions and yourself to be accepted by others. But there's also the pain of being fully yourself and being not accepted by others.
Mm-hmm.
It's simple. Like there's pain.
That pain, which you speak to now, is there'll be maybe once or twice a year when I will be fully feeling that pain that Gabor Mate mentioned. And my wife each time says, why do you do it to yourself? Why do you do it to yourself? And I look at her like, oh my God, baby, you don't know what life looks like when you don't allow that to happen. Not as a self-flagellating, let's make this terrible moment, but I'm going to shut down to survive. No, I'm going to open up and feel the pain of that opening, but I'm not going to compromise. And it hurts sometimes. And that means I need to be more conscious of my own space, what I need. I've got a farm in Spain. It's hidden away in the mountains with 6,000 people. And they're all, for the most part, spiritual practitioners or very independent living. And, you know, I leave my house and hopefully I'm interacting with others who are reflecting on their own behavior, not trying to change the world, but change themselves. And, you know, that's the environments that bring me more connection to myself. So, hey, and then I spend my time in New York City in the middle of the financial district, which couldn't be any further away from that experience. And I get to sort of sense, what does it do to me? How is this influencing my state of wellness and my connection to myself? And it's a very fascinating dichotomy to experience these two worlds juxtaposed to one another. Yeah.
Love you, man.
Love you too, man.
Yeah, it was actually really challenging. Or not. No, it wasn't challenging. It was insightful for me to be the Earth space, the foundation, and I'm gonna put links to that in this episode because it's a little relevant. And it was great because it reflected on how much I focus on this, what I can control.
Yeah.
I don't get involved with other politics or other worldly things, and like that's what majority of that was speaking to, and that's needed, and it was inspiring, and I'm fucking like pumped to know that these people are in the world, and it's like deeply moving, and I want to contribute because of that, because I've fallen in love all over again with other people. Yeah. But then it really was a reference to like, oh, all the spaces I'm in, it's all about this. And then not there's healthy sides of that and unhealthy sides, but like it for me it was like a real like, oh no, I'm just controlling this, and not getting too caught up in. And
I would say the word control, I would say surrendering to that.
Yes.
Yeah, because of the surrender to it, then you'll be saying,
there's a lot I can learn. I'm young.
I know what. Those words are so important to me because it's the words that distinguish the experience. Yeah. And that's the experience I'm going to. I'm surrendering to that voice. I'm letting the voice speak and saying, oh, Jesus, you're going to talk. Oh, what are you going to say? Oh, my God. Oh, really? You're going to name this? You're really going to. And there's a surrender that's holding space with love, because I know that I've washed a lot of the judgment, but I haven't. Let me be clear. There's the judgment. There's not a value placed on it. So I do judge what's going on. I don't want to confuse. A lot of times people will use that, don't judge. No, I'm judging all the time. I'm not placing the value like this is bad. Yeah. I'm saying, no, there's consequences for that behavior. And this is what tends to happen, and make it explicit. So, hey, I don't want to say that this isn't, but if you do that, that's kind of the consequence. And so holding that space, letting the words speak, and then afterwards say, what are you going to do with those words now? Like, I don't know what I'm going to do with the words after they come out of my mouth. Like, I know they've come out. Now I've got to be present to how to navigate that in a group of 10. And it's a present to say, wow, now you've made my life difficult, like that voice. Well, you've made my life difficult, and now how are you going to move through this one? Right? Two people arguing, two people shouting over one another. I do a lot of relationship coaching, a lot of it. Yeah. Two partners shouting at one another, frustrated with one another, not listening. And hey, what I'll do is I'll take over the voice of one of them. I'll say, you be quiet. I'm now you. Because I know what they're thinking, because I know. and then I'm talking to the other person as if I'm them, and because I can adopt that voice,
Sure.
it's, it's possible to hold space for another maybe who can't articulate themselves well. So it's fascinating how that works.
Yeah, for sure. I think we'll wrap it up, brother. Yeah.
Yes.
Anything you want to speak to?
No, thank you. It's really wonderful to be here.
Yeah. And what's next for you, do you think? What are you most
New book.
excited about?
New
The
book.
New book, yeah.
New book.
Yeah, let's speak to the connection, please. Yeah.
Oh,
How does it feel?
this is not the new book.
No, I know. But
This book.
I'll get it in a shot.
You can get it at any of your local dealers
Yeah, there you
for
go.
$19.95.
You're terrible at that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, great. The new book.
Yeah, I'm
So-
writing a new book. So that
Yeah.
book it's going through its drafts, and I'm sending it actually literally to the Dalai Lama because it's about death.
Wow.
So it's facing death, and it's,
Yeah. You said,
and I got an inroads with the Dalai Lama. Yeah. So I don't, like everything, you surrender, you joy. And sometimes things happen. You're really shocked that they do, but yeah. That's the joy. Is the next book is this is the how do I make peace with today with you,
Yeah.
and it's how do I make peace with the end, and today actually again, but in different context.
Sure.
Yeah,
Today's
in light
the
of our
end.
impending doom, our impermanence, Chris, the fact that we came, we saw, and then we leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's leave it there. Continue the conversation.
Thank you, my brother.